There is a front page story today in the Seattle Times that seems to accuse Pierce County Sheriff Ed Troyer of racial profiling. He encountered a black man in his neighborhood several nights ago. It was actually on January 27th, so almost 2 months ago. It's just hitting the news now, and Ed Troyer joins us here on the Dori Monson Show. Sheriff, always appreciate you coming on with me.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me.
Okay, I went over this in the big lead in the last half hour, so I played some of the audio, but let's walk through this. So you called 911. It was about 2 in the morning. What inspired you to make the call to dispatch?
Well, I was at home. Everybody knows me. I'm up late watching TV. I saw some headlights come through my windows and a car rev up, and I looked outside my windows, saw a car go down a neighbor's driveway with the headlights off, come back out, go up the road, go through another neighbor's driveway. And so we've had break-ins. I've had my house shot up with paintballs or mailboxes broken into. So I just got out of bed and jumped in my car and was going to go out and see if I can get a license plate or find out who it was or what was going on. At this point, I didn't know if it was a male. I didn't know if it was a female. I didn't know race or anything other than it was a car going up and down neighbors' driveways at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
So,
yeah. So then you confronted the guy, and how did that go down, your initial conversation with the guy?
Well, there wasn't much of a conversation. He got out of the vehicle mad as a hornet and pulled in front of me in the road. And as soon as he got out, he was screaming and yelling and mad. And so that's when I called dispatch. And when I called dispatch, the police department, straight into dispatch and told them what was going on and that I needed a couple cars. It got very exaggerated. I don't know where all the car numbers came from, but I just asked for a couple cars for help because I wasn't about to engage with a person in the middle of the street in my own neighborhood. I basically was just trying to figure out if I can get a plate, get a car, see what they were doing. I never found out what they were doing because we never got to that point because I backed off and waited for the police cars to come.
Okay, we now know what he was doing. He's a 24-year-old black guy named Cedric Altheimer, and he says he was delivering, and apparently he was, not just his word, he was delivering newspapers for the Tacoma News Tribune, but that was never communicated in your conversation with him.
No, correct. That was never communicated in my conversation with him. All I knew is I had somebody who was really mad in the road yelling at me and screaming and looking like he wanted to fight with me, and I wasn't going to engage at all. I did not have any of my police equipment, my police car. I was not armed, and I called the dispatch and asked for some marked units, which is the proper thing to do, and not get mixed up in that.
Okay, now here's where things get very inflammatory. On the 911 dispatch, there are clips of you, and I played them earlier in the show. One, you said, he just threatened to kill me. Another, he says he knows who I am and just threatened to kill me. He just says I'm a racist and unintelligible to kill me. So did this guy threaten to kill you?
Yeah, well, what he said was he told me he was going to take me out. And when he said he was going to take me out, and with his anger and everything, I backed up and I was not going to engage with them, and that's when I called dispatch. The wording may be different, but I felt like he was threatening me when he said he was going to take me out. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I don't know who he is. He had never told me he was delivering newspapers, and that's why I called the police and said what I said. He also knew who I was because he was calling me Mr. Sheriff. And he's calling me Mr. Sheriff, and also that the only reason why I was there is because he was a black man in a white person's neighborhood, and I don't live in a white person's neighborhood, so that's known to begin with. And he said that was it, and I told him that wasn't the reason, and I was just standing there, and I told him that I'd called the police, and we both stood there and waited, and they got there very quick, within a minute or two.
Well, and I heard you specifically ask for 1 or 2 cars when
Correct.
you first radioed in.
Mm-hmm.
Did they actually send 32 cars from every agency in the South Sound area?
Well, I don't know if that's true, and I don't think they would do that. That would be odd. I think what they did is that everybody's kind of on the same frequency, and they put it out over the main frequency. And so I think that many cars were working that night all over the county, including the cities and everywhere, heard it. So I don't believe that many cars showed up. In fact, I know it didn't. Only a few cars showed up, and the first couple that got there controlled the situation very quick. The Tacoma police showed up and took control of the situation within a minute or two and canceled everybody else.
Do you, and the Seattle Times says that you recanted when you talked to Tacoma police, which took over from there. They say that you recanted, that on the audio you 3 times said he was going to kill me, and that in your interview with Tacoma police, you recanted that. What do you say to that?
Well, there was no real interview with the Tacoma Police Department. One of my sergeants showed up and a couple police officers. We talked about what happened, and what they asked me was, and what I was asked by a couple of the things that they wanted, if I wanted to do a threats report or if I wanted to do take any further action. And what I said was, no, I don't want to do a threats report. I just want this to end. Now that he has been identified as a newspaper carrier and you guys are here, I consider the situation over. So I just wanted it to be over and said, nope, I don't want to do a threats report. So there might have been some confusion in the part where I said, I don't want to do a threats report, or there wasn't a threat. But, I mean, the threat was there. I just didn't want to follow up on it. I was fine. He had a little bit of a temper going, and they asked me, he's still pretty angry. Do you want to put a car in front of your house for the night? And I said, no, absolutely not. I'm good. I don't need a car in front of my house. But what's interesting is after this is over, approximately half hour later, I hear noise out in front of my house, and the guy's standing in front of my house, and he launches a newspaper up into my driveway. And I did not call the police. I did not go confront him then. I just let it be. And then the next night, the same thing happened. I came out the following morning again, and there was another newspaper in my driveway. So he's shown back up to my house a couple times, but I didn't report it, and I didn't do anything about it. I can understand his frustration at that point, but we were just looking to see who was prowling the neighborhood. It had nothing to do with gender, race, or anything.
Well, and from what he told the Seattle Times, it sounded like he says he threw the newspapers to your house just to goof on you for the original incident. But you just kind of referenced this, Sheriff. Do you understand whatever anger he was feeling if he was, out busting his hump at 2 a.m. delivering newspapers, don't make a lot of money, you're working in the middle of the night, and somebody comes and confronts you? And then if he did recognize you as sheriff, there has been an awful lot of, talk about these confrontations between cops and black guys. So, do you understand his anger and frustration?
Oh, yeah, I absolutely understand it. But I also understand that all he would have to say on his end, if he just said, I'm delivering newspapers, and I would have taken a look at it, I probably would have thanked him and just went home and it all been over with. But that's not the reason why I was there. It was to chase a black man delivering newspapers down. I'm 35 years in this department. I've never had a complaint about any type of racism. I've never had a use of force complaint, and I've never had a confrontation like that. And I've never also ever read a news story or seen a news story that was so unfair or one-sided than that Seattle Times article.
Yeah, and I want to get to that because
okay.
Here's was my take as I read this. You are the sheriff. You see a car going into driveways on your block. I would hope that if I lived on the street with the sheriff, that person would come and see what's going on. I understand what you did. I also understand this guy being ticked off, that he's doing his job. He's getting confronted. What I don't understand is 2 months after this happened, and this guy never came after you. He never wanted to make this a story. He didn't go to the media. The Seattle Times heard about it, and they went to him. So from what you just said moments ago, it makes it sound like you really think like this was a Seattle Times hit piece.
Oh, absolutely. It was a Seattle Times hit piece. And, I would even sit down and talk with the guy. He probably is a nice guy away from everything, and he'd probably like me. We just got into bad circumstances that was escalated and in the middle of the night, and there'd been an easier way to solve it. And I think by calling somebody else to come handle it instead of me engaging was the right decision, and I stick by it. And what I think probably would happen is the way the feelings are today, because everything I've told you on this show right now, I told the Seattle Times multiple times. I even have it in writing now to put out, but it never made it into the article. They changed some of the wording. They didn't let me respond to some of their accusations, and they clearly guided it in one direction. And I believe that possibly can be attributed to, and everybody's known, even on this show and other shows, and it's been very clear through my election, that I said I will not let Pierce County become King County, and I will not hope our area becomes like Seattle. That's been very, very clear, and I've said it many times to many media outlets that we are doing certain things down here with our co-responder program, mental health people, building things with human services, and doing things that people want, where I'm a big, let's supplement the police, let's not defund them. And that's just not the spirit and theory up there, so I don't think they like me to begin with, because it seems like every time I have conversations with the Seattle Times, it's adversarial.
Well, I know a little bit from personal experience. So when Seattle Times wants to try to destroy somebody, they're relentless in doing so. So, this just at a time when we have enough legitimate problems. When this guy didn't, Altimer, the 24-year-old man, when he didn't go to the media to try to make a big deal out of this, it is a bit interesting that the media chose to put a big deal on something that it sounds like you and this gentleman had put behind you. So interesting times. Yeah.
Well, I put it behind me before I went in, and when the newspapers are delivered to my house intentionally, because I don't subscribe to the newspaper, I subscribe to it electronically. I don't get a real newspaper. I kind of actually chuckled and wasn't upset about it. I wasn't going to go search him down or call the police or do anything. I just let it roll off my back. And, we got thick skin. I have thick skin. I'm a politician now that I signed up for this job, but my family members and friends don't. They take it personally because they know I'm not that way. And in the article, it says I have a black wife or something to that fact, and I don't. My wife's Pacific Islander. I have a black grandson, and I have a lot of friends of his that are black that I've coached and raised my whole entire career, and every one of them will stand up and tell you I am not the way I'm being portrayed there.
Understood.
Nope.
Well, I'm glad you were able to come on with me this afternoon and present your side of things.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Pierce County Sheriff Ed Troyer joining us about the incident nearly 2 months ago that is somehow today front page news. Love to hear your thoughts. You can text me at 98973. That's 98973. Lots more to come here on the Dori Monson Show.